sun has just risen. Let me see if we get it lined up here with the Lutheran Tower. I'm not sure. Maybe the St. Saviour's Tower will take over that space. Yeah. Probably in a couple of weeks we can manage that. You know, it's interesting. It's Shabbat morning, so the Jewish folks have this day completely reserved for the soul, for the mind, for the family. And here we have some workers, maybe Muslim, maybe Christian, for whom then another day is the day for the soul and the mind and the heart. And here we have these guys cleaning. You know, it's like the children are playing, but mama's in the kitchen and doing so many things, 3 or 4 things simultaneously. The clothes are washing and some repairs are being done to some things, some other things are being cleaned, some things are being prepared for a meal. Somebody needs a little advice on encounter, so there's a telephone going at the same time. And so many people make our lives possible. And that's beautiful. And then you feel really sorry for the people who try to make our lives impossible. You know, it's such a waste of life to make the life of another person impossible, to create hurt and difficulty. And the first reading has a lot of that this morning. You know, I think what we have in view right now is the memorial of Herod the Great near Bethlehem, the Herodian. It's in the very center of the screen, and you have the top building, you have the big building in the more foreground, then you have the monastery of Marilias, of Elijah the prophet, Greek Orthodox monastery. And behind that you have a rise in the land. I can't focus in better, but maybe you can see it. And that was the tomb of Herod the Great. You know, the poor guy, you know, he was a genius. He was an economic, brilliant guy. He was a political chess player, ruthless, an extraordinary accomplisher of incredible buildings we still see today, and their remains, the port of Caesarea, the building in Hebron, the temple was the most beautiful temple of the Roman Empire, and this guy put that together. And he wasn't even Jewish. He was an Edomite, and his mother was from the people that are in Petra. What was the Nabatean? Her name was Kippers, I think. And you know, he was a genius. His dad was a very successful business guy. And he obviously made the life of a lot of people possible in the sense of his economic and military thing, but he eliminated a lot of people. You know, he eliminated his own wife, Miriam, when she started complaining that he was eliminating her dad and her brothers. To make life possible for people, the people that clean, the people that deliver the mail, the people that bake the bread, the people that sow the vegetables and harvest and deliver, the people that make bells that ring for us, people who make life possible for us, people who open the gate here, because before it wasn't an open gate, it wasn't needed. The less gates, the better to keep out enemies. But then when these 2 buildings here were built, the Lewis Hospital here and here Notre Dame, then this gate was a great thing, and it made life possible. That man could walk out and not walk all around through the Jaffa Gate or the Damascus Gate. There are people who make life possible and people who make life impossible. And that first reading from Revelation is talking about the mocking and the gloating over the destruction of others. But you know what? There's an amazing line at the end of the passage. An amazing line. And I just wish that everybody could participate in that line. And in fact, we're looking at the tower here of the Savior. But if you look up on the Mount of Olives, that little tower up there, let me focus in on it for you. The tower of the Monastery of the Ascension. That tall tower there, very close to the place where we remember the ascension into heaven. You have to think of that when you're reading the next line here. Where it says, after all the misery that was inflicted on these people, on these witnesses of truth and goodness, people who made lives possible for others. So, but after 3.5 days, a breath of life from God entered them. They were murdered, tormented, tortured, neutralized, eliminated, inconvenient for the powers that be. But after 3.5 days, a breath of life from God entered them. When they stood on their feet, great fear fell on those who saw them. Of course, because they thought they had them completely destroyed, and suddenly they are alive. Then they heard a loud voice from heaven say to them, "Come up here." So they went up to heaven in a cloud as their enemies looked on. In a certain sense, we're seeing the ascension then, that which we Christians celebrate for Jesus on the Mount of Olives. We remember that, and is really for God. Didn't need to do that for himself. He did it for us and for our salvation. And the ascension is a mystery that is the future of our lives. I think I mentioned this recently, but I was fascinated. We were in the car. Maybe I didn't mention it. Maybe it was just in personal conversations here that weren't live stream. I also do conversations that are not live stream. And so maybe we were in the car. Yeah, I think we were in the car coming from Magdala the other day. And I don't know how this conversation came about, but and I'm not sure who was it, one of the priests or one of the volunteers talked about how there's some people who have developed a map, a timeline of the world, and represented symbolically on a 24-hour chart the entire history of the cosmos as modern science postulates in our time. So 24 hours covered from the Big Bang till now. Well, guess when humanity appeared on that chart? In the last 3 seconds. And when did Jesus appear on that chart? In the last second. In the last second. And that's 2,000 years ago. And it mightn't even have been, maybe David was also in the last second. I'm not sure if Abraham was in the second last second or in the last second. But in that sense, we could understand a little bit more what it means, the end times. We could understand a little bit more about a culmination of history. And we don't know how far we're into the present final second of the 24 hours. But it's a fascinating thought. And the fact is, it looks like we're here all forever and always. That's an instinct we have, we want to be. But all the archaeology here tells us, and there's lots of it, that every empire crumbles. How many corporations are still existing just, let's say, 200 years? But even 25 years, they say that 1 in 5 companies that are founded survive 5 years. And of those 5 such companies, in another 5 years, there's only 1 of them standing. So all the companies that were founded in the last 25 years ago, there's only 1 standing today. Like 1 out of 25, rather. Yeah. In 25 years. So that's a very interesting theorem. Now, we do need companies, we do need associations, we do need buildings, we do need organizations, but there's very few standing over time. And that's fascinating to think about it, because we invest so much in these things, and we should because of love, but not because of greed, because it's all going to disappear. It's all going to be archaeology, if at all. So when they stood on their feet, great fear fell on those who saw them. Then they heard a loud voice from heaven say to them, "Come up here." So they went up to heaven in a cloud as their enemies looked on. So they didn't even call out their enemies, because the kingdom here is gone. It's fallen apart. So where to put our investment? The investment in every person destined for eternal life. That's the priority. But sometimes, there's critiques of this, that we put profit first, or we put our comfort first, or we put having a little bit more money in my pocket first. Whereas if I put the other person first and skip that extra bit of overtime and spend some time with a person who was ill or needed help, it's a different world. My kingdom is not of this world. And it's for real. That's the amazing thing about it, And actually we have the same message in the gospel. We have that very funny story, you can read it, about the woman that married 7 husbands. And she didn't have any children with any of them. And whose wife will she be in heaven was the question the Sadducee asked. And the Pharisee was very happy with Jesus' answer, and he said, we don't need to ask him any more questions. We're happy, we can go home today and relax and have a laugh over the Sadducees. But that wasn't the point. The point was really that the line that's so strong there, is so powerful, is God is a God of the living, not of the dead. So God is a God of the living, so we live beyond death. We live beyond death. That's amazing to think about and to ponder. And we have that beautiful psalm today. Blessed be the Lord my rock. We're again towards the end of the Psalms book, Psalm 144. There's 150 of them. And this is the beginning of the Psalm 144. Blessed be the Lord my rock. And really the whole world is kind of a moving sand, but it's held in the hand of the Lord. All the economies, you can't believe it, how moving sand they are. All the politics, how moving sand they are. There's little children going to school. So that was a little school bus that just drove in there. I remember when we were in secondary school, more than 50 years ago, we used to have a half-day school on Saturdays. But the girls didn't, just the boys. Interesting. Blessed be the Lord our rock. Here you can see them now in a better little picture here after school. With their little school bags. Their own life is the same. Blessed be the Lord my rock. We'll leave it like that for today. This is the Dome of the Rock. The creation on the rock. And the rock wasn't just a piece of limestone that's here. It's mostly limestone, Jerusalem limestone. You can see it here in the building. This is real Jerusalem limestone, quarried from underneath the building itself to build it. Brought up to this level by camels on ramps. We have pictures of that 140 years ago. So people, may you be blessed today. May you know where your rock is and be well built on the rock. See you later, alligators.